there is a tipping point on the planet, and the positive, the joyful, the light we need each other to sort of hold hands and be a bright spot, even in the midst of, I mean, that's why they do candlelight vigils. That's why people gather together for candlelight vigils, is to like let other people know that the hearts are alive, the hearts are there. And that's a ritual that's been going on forever. And so there's no such thing as like completely burying yourself. I don't think that works either. I think you have to know what's going on. I think you have to also take care to protect yourself and protect that light, because it's not just me. It's like, I don't have to do everything. You don't have to do everything. But if there's enough of us doing what we can do, that light does exponentially expand. And there is a tipping point on this planet where the light will overtake all of this. And, hopefully in our lifetimes that will happen. I mean, we are moving into the age of Aquarius. Pluto is going into Aquarius at the end of January. So hold tight. It's still in Capricorn, and Capricorn is structures and authority and governments and everything. And it's like the old guard, and Pluto is like smash. I don't want any of that. So Pluto going into Aquarius is much more about the collective and what we all need. And what's good for all is good for one. And that's where we're headed. So, 3 months. Can you just, I'm not saying that everything in the world is going to completely change in 3 months, but I will say that the last 3 months here, there might be a little kicking and screaming of Capricorn not wanting to go away.
Hey, Mary Jo, welcome to the Awakened Heart podcast.
Hi, Nancy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about our conversation about talking about all things astrology. There's so many different avenues that we can go into astrology, numerology, you do energy work, tarot cards. And it's so cool right now because so many people, I talk about this a lot about on the Awakened Heart podcast. It's about awakening our hearts and really an intentional, soulful based way of living. And a lot of people, especially with what happened in the last couple of years, are really finding ways to find some more fulfillment in their lives, whether it's a job that's not working out so well, or they're beginning to listen to those nudges that want them to change things up and maybe follow what, they're here in this lifetime to do or create. So there's a lot of awakening happening on our planet with different people. People are popping awake like popcorn. Some people, they might still be asleep, but maybe that's just where they have to, that's their lesson in this lifetime. So what I think is so cool with you is you had that other job that, you had fulfillment in as a news producer in the media world, marketing director, and it just at a certain point, it wasn't feeling fulfilling anymore. And so you had this awakening, and you had a couple awakenings, but you called it your third awakening when you created Soulful Revolution. So can you maybe explain what an awakening is, and maybe go into where you were before, and then you had this awakening, and how you were led to doing what you're doing now?
I was, I'm going to say, I'm just going to track this back to 2008, because I think before people become awakened, or they have an awakening, I don't know, become awakened, but have an awakening, there's usually some warning shots. There's usually some little glimmers, little things that are interesting. I started studying tarot. I read tarot in college. I read tarot, intermittently. I'd learned a lot from different people along the way. It was a tool I used for my own kind of, I've kept a journal since I was in 7th grade. So I do readings for myself, and I discuss it with my journal. That's really how I talk about what's going on with me and sort of get it out. I mean, I'm a Gemini North Node. So Gemini is all about communication all the time. So 2008, I had a moment in time. I think it was the previous year. I'm a Sagittarian. I'm a December baby. And my husband at the time gave me an astrology reading. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I just thought it was so cool. The woman was here in Maine too. And so we just had a great old time. We gabbed on for 3 hours and she was like, oh my God, I've got to go. Oh my God, I've got to go. And the following year, by that December of the following year, I knew it was ironic that my husband gave me that, because I knew the marriage was over. I knew that my career, I had gone from TV news. I had, been in TV in local and in national with NBC and with ABC. And I had been in marketing, and all of those things were fine. Very, not things to throw away. I learned what I needed to learn from them. And then they just seemed to be over. And in the summer of 2020 or 2008, the banks fell off a cliff, as you might recall, and Pluto had ingressed into Capricorn in that year. So Pluto is the planet of, if stuff is not working for us, we need to get rid of it. So when Pluto moved into Capricorn, I had this complete implosion of the agency I was working for went from 400 employees to 30 in 2 weeks.
Wow.
The banks imploded. I got divorced, sold the house back to my ex-husband. It was very amicable. It wasn't like a disaster or anything, but every single element of my life had closed up. It just was complete. And I was kind of like, me and my dog Stella, I was kind of like, okay, like, what do I do now? So I had sold the house back to my ex-husband. And so I had some cushion here to kind of allow myself to do some healing. I stayed in the area for a little while. And then I was like, no, I think Maine is kicking me out. So I went back to where I grew up in Connecticut, and I rented a little cottage that was kind of in the woods. I didn't have TV for like a couple years.
Mm.
I listened to baseball. I'm a big baseball fan. I listened to baseball on radio, and I just kind of let myself heal from a lot of what was going on. And during that time, I started to be much more interested in astrology and tarot. And I started doing a lot more of that, just reading for myself and being interested in that. Started a little business teaching people how to be on camera for their, for video, for YouTube and things like that, because that's what I would teach the anchors and things. And at one point, I kind of just got to the place where between 2008 and 2016 was really the epiphany, the pivot point, where I had 3 or 4 different types of narcissists travel through my life. My ex-husband was nothing like that. I had very lovely relationships and everything like that. Sometimes things just end. But wow, in that time period, I came upon all of these like little pockets of super duper unhealthy relationship patterns, things that were kind of opening up for me, things that were kind of like showing themselves to me about the way I was being unhealthy in my coping mechanisms, which is just code for I'm not emotionally mature enough yet to see the pattern. So I'm just coping with it. I'm just living with it, right? And in 2016, I recognized that these patterns had to stop. And in January of 2016, it took me 6 months to get out of a very toxic relationship, but I did it and kind of pulled myself back into this place where it was like clean and sober from these relationships. Like I had just been so of the mindset that, well, I need to be in a relationship. Like that's what we do as grownups. And this is important for me. And it is because it taught me a lot. But in 2016, for that year, summer 2016 to 2017, when I started the channel, I really kind of detoxed from all of these unhealthy relationship patterns where I was super codependent, very allowing of people just treating me super badly, third-party connections, all kinds of just like stuff that wasn't going to be long-term healthy for me or short-term healthy for me. And so in that year, I kind of saw it all. I picked it apart. And in the middle of that year, I had a heart chakra awakening, which was essentially saying like, you found your way back to your heart again. Like, we're so happy that you're here. You know, you've really just kind of abandoned yourself for all this time. And so it wasn't because of a relationship that happened. It was more of a sense that I took myself seriously. I was taking my own needs seriously. I was taking my own mental health seriously. And I just felt like, wow, okay, you know, and in that time, I had this little practice of teaching people how to be on video and making video for companies. And I was super burned out on that. And I just said, okay, one day I just decided, I was like, you know, my accountant had said to me, he's like, I think you might need to do something else. This doesn't seem like it's working anymore. And my lawyer, my brother happens to be a lawyer, but this was a woman lawyer who I had been working with. And she's like, listen, she's like, if you just want to file and, you know, file for bankruptcy or just clean slate yourself, we can clean slate you and start something fresh. And there was something about it that was like the most terrifying thing in the world to me was that, but also the most freeing thing, because she was kind of like, took me seriously. She wasn't being like, it's your fault, you did a whole bunch of things wrong or anything. She's like, listen, sometimes people just need to make a pivot in their life. And you kind of do. You've kind of come to the place where you're burned out on this. So just give me all this stuff back. I will take care of it. Just send people to me. You pay your bills through the end of the year. We'll file in January. It'll all be fine. And I walked out of there and I was like, can I really do this? Can I just really like clean slate my life? And like, there's something that day, it was July. It was like the air was so crisp. I could smell like every smell it was like in a parking lot. This was not in like some beautiful, I wasn't in Tibet looking over the mountains or anything. This was like in a parking lot in like East Windsor, Connecticut. It wasn't great. But I just felt like this moment, I was like, this is one of those peak moments.
In a parking lot.
In a parking lot. And I was like, you know, like you have those peak moments with your friends, or like you're sitting around, it's like a beautiful night. You're like, this is it. This is what life's about. And I had that moment and I went home and I was like, I want this to stay. I like this. And so I just felt free of all of that. I felt like I had just liberated myself. The heart was still doing its thing. Like I felt like very cleansed and very clean and clear. And within a couple of weeks, I started the channel. I started Soulful Revolution because I was like, damn, this is something everybody should do. Everybody should have a moment in time where they feel free. And maybe it's my Sagittarian nature, but I felt free. And I started the channel in, I think it was September, but really October. They're telling me October 6th or something like that. And I didn't make it live until October 6th. And during Thanksgiving, I went back to the lawyer and she said, okay, you want to fill out the paperwork? And I was like, I don't think we're going to have to. Like the channel just started to grow. And I could see how like the money worked. I could see how the business would grow. And I was like, I think I'm going to pay all this. You help me, but I'm going to pay all this because I did this to myself and I want to do that. She was like, all right. So within 6 months, it was all debt was gone. It was like almost $75,000, $100,000 in debt, all gone.
What a relief, huh?
All gone. And the taxes were paid up, everything. And she's like, man, you're like my poster child. Like, this is amazing. So the channel, you know, has been going for 6 years. And the people, I want to say to anybody who's terrified of being on the internet, the tribe that has been attracted to this content because of the intention of the content has been over the top amazing. I wasn't afraid of it because I'd been on TV and I didn't really care about that, but like being public, but just the people I've met have been incredibly amazing. And what a gift back to me, you know, after like going through all of this and putting this out there and like, wow, there's actually an amazing community here that wants to plug into this and wants to do this and wants to be in a life that they're super excited about every day and wants to, you know, learn how to do that. And I have so much gratitude for it. I really do.
And it probably helped because you started journaling when you were young. When you were a child. Seven,
Seventh
what was that
grade.
again?
Yeah. Seventh
Seventh
grade.
grade. Seventh grade. So just putting your own insights and your thoughts in helped that channel was already open from, seventh grade. So then when you said you started to channel, can you explain what that exactly means? How you open up to your guides, or when you start channeling, how you see things or how it comes to you?
It's so interesting because I never realized that I have been channeling my whole life. I never realized it. I think people think it's some kind of like other worldly thing. It's really not. It's like your creativity. It's when ideas start flowing through you. It's when, words just start coming to you. Or I'm a clairaudient, so I hear. This is how I got myself through college. I could remember what the professor said, and I kind of could like play back the conversation in my head. And for me, the guides are friends. They're always around. We all have a kind of a cadre of guides. Whether you're open to them or not, they're there. So you don't have to like all of a sudden become like meditating 5 hours a day or anything like that to open up to this. Everybody has their own creative channel. Everybody has that. And essentially when you're tuned in to your channel, I feel, and this may be different for other people, but my experience of it is just like, I feel excited, but grounded at the same time. I feel like things start making sense. I have chills in my upper legs, which I'm having right now as I'm telling you about this. When I meditate and when I go talk to my two main guides, Isaac and Isabel are the two main guides that I've gotten to know. I also have a lot of archangel energy, a lot of protection energy because of the public nature of the work. And when I go and meditate, I have these two places where I go see Isabel. She's in a garden, and Isaac is kind of like this body, like British, kind of the guy side. And she's like this sweet kind of bippity boppity boo, like lady, and it's just like that's the imagery I have because of my childhood or because of my upbringing. That's the look of them. But what comes through them is very kind and very nurturing, different ways of communicating. We all have, protector guides. We all have animal guides. We all have angels who for particular reasons, I really want to get that raise. You have an angel who takes care of your finances. Okay. And an angel that's like mapping out your work, what you're here to do. You can just ask them anytime. I live alone, so it does help that I walk around and I talk to them all the time. And then when I get little ideas or get little things coming through me, it doesn't have to come as a whole conversation or anything. It's just like, okay, I know the feeling of it. And so when people are starting to learn to open to their guides and learning to understand their intuition, the fastest way to kill it is self-doubt. That didn't really happen. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. Stop with the nonsense, because the fact is, like, you're here to channel through this information. You're here as a conduit to, help inspire the world, to help bring light to other people, to help other people in ways that you are specifically, perfectly guided to do. If you feel guided to, I'm going to go to the grocery store after I finish talking to you, and I talk to people at the grocery store. Sometimes people that don't live with anybody are lonely. I just feel like I gravitate toward them, and that's a pretty scarf or something like that. Like, it doesn't always happen, but I just feel like human interaction is super important. And I just follow those little nudges. And when you start to understand your intuition and what it feels like, it whispers, it doesn't scream. Fear screams. That's why you have to get yourself quiet and grounded. You're not stopping your thoughts. Impossible. You're just separating. You're just putting some distance between you and those thoughts. So you're not attaching to them. All right. You're not attaching feelings to them. You're not attaching anything to them. You're just allowing it to float through. And then most of the time, what will happen to me is there'll be a little conversation, and I'll get some ideas. Ideas are my stock in trade. I don't know. Other people may have it differently, but that's what happens to me.
Mm. Make it sound so simple. It is simple. We make it so hard because we get in
Simple
our
but
own
not
way.
easy, right?
Yeah.
Simple but not easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how would somebody start right now? I mean, I've had a spiritual practice for a long time, but I've probably been out of it for the last 6 months and just getting back
Mhm.
into that quiet space. And I'm more in my head now than my heart and my body. And there's situations at home that are just throwing me off kilter, and I'm just trying to
Mhm.
rebalance. So there's people like myself who have practiced and maybe, tapped into that a little bit. And then there's people that are just beginning to like, hey, I'm feeling this nudge, but I don't know how to quite follow it. So what is a really beginning practice for them to kind of quiet, get grounded, and start opening up that channel and trusting what's given to them? Because a lot of times we'll get these ideas or these images, and it's like, oh no, that's crazy. I'm talking to the air, my angels. Oh yeah, right. I don't hear them talking back. But you
No, I
do.
mean, you do. And because it's you, it's your, the guidance is coming through in a way that is specific to you. So some of the people listening may get little ideas. Some may get little glimmers about like, I got to call that person or I've got to do whatever. My practice is, like I said, I live by myself. So this is easier than people who have kids and have lots of like, I got to get to a job early in the morning. Like I get it. But I think there needs to be a priority that you have with yourself, that you give yourself a half an hour, 15 minutes, whatever you can, whatever's possible, but just be consistent with it. And so my practice, at night, I've got too much rolling around in my head. I have to like move away from it and sort of cleanse it and everything like that. But a lot of my dreams are very important. I do write my dreams. I do ask myself to remember my dreams. And so the morning time is my time. So I've built my life. I work at my house. And so I've built my life that I have a little structure. I have been terrible at structure most of my life. I don't like it. I'm a Sagittarius. I like to be free.
You sound like me.
Yeah. And so, but what I started to understand was, this probably happened when I was working at the marketing agency, because I heard myself say it and I was like, oh my God, that's for me. If you don't know where the box is, it's impossible to get outside of the box. So if you are just kind of all over the place and don't have yourself kind of have a routine or something like that, you're going to find that you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a wacky train of thought and your guidance. You're not going to be able to tell because there's nothing to compare it to. So in the morning, Charlie, I wake up with Charlie about 5 o'clock. I get him outside.
Whoa.
I come back in, just out in the back. I have a little fenced in yard, whatever. I get him inside. I don't want to get out of bed until I don't want to have to ever get out of bed in the morning. So I never have set an alarm for the last 7 years. I don't do it. Whenever I wake up, it's fine. Today it was 6:30. Yesterday it was 4:30. Sometimes it's 5, whatever. And so, cause I go to bed early and I like to read and then I like to go to sleep. So in the morning when I wake up, I'm like, I don't need to get out of this bed until 8 o'clock. So it's fun. It doesn't bother me to get up, put my coat on, let him out to pee, and then come back in. And I have tea or whatever I have. And I have a I have a little fireplace thing in my bedroom that's like a heater. And so it's like this beautiful ambiance, not a lot of light, not a lot of strong light. But then I do my reading for myself. I ask what I need to know for the day. I set an intention. And this is relatively new. This is not something I've done all this time along, but I've said to myself, something super exciting is going to happen today. Something wonderful will happen today.
Expectation.
Yeah. Set an intention. Don't be so specific about it. Be a little more general, because the problem is people, if you set, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with that really cute guy that works in accounting today. And he's going to say this to me, and it doesn't happen. Then the first thing you say to yourself is, this doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But if you learn to manifest from a place of generality at first, and you're manifesting your day and you're saying, today, I am going to have something really exciting come across my plate. Then your mind,
open.
you're open to it. And also your mind is looking for it. Your mind is aware of it. So some days, something really super special is just that, I get to spend the evening with Charlie, and that feels really good to me. Or my friends are coming over, I'm having a dinner, or wow, I'm on this podcast, right? And just set that intention for yourself every day, because then it's like, it almost creates this expectation of like, ooh, what's going to happen today? Like, what's going to come across my plate? And be as little magical fairy dust and unicorns as you want. Like, nobody has to know about this. You don't have to go like, all right, this week I'm starting my intentions, everybody. And so, just keep it to yourself. And I do my reading for myself. I ask what I need to know today. I set my intention. And then I kind of turn my attention to the day, and I say, okay, I'm going to be doing these readings. I do a morning message every week. I do each zodiac sign. We have a group called the Heart Healing Group, which we're currently working on toxic relationship patterns and how to heal those. I have a Pathfinders group, which can just be like questions about how do I get from this step to the next step, or what's my astrology or whatever. And that's my week. And I'm like, okay. And all of a sudden it's Friday, right? But every day I'm looking at like those things that are in my structure that I've created, and like be creative within them. You don't have to let structure be like a terrible thing. Like, oh God, I'm so bored of this. Each thing I'd be like, okay, this week I'm going to tap into ancestor messages for each zodiac sign. Oh, that's exciting. Okay. And then, wow, this is like the beginning of November. I've got all this astrology to look at to help people understand what's going to be happening in the energy of November. Because my goal is you surf it, not let it kind of bury you. Don't let the astrology be like, oh, I'm doomed or anything like that. It's just silly. Like, you can surf the energy. So I know, okay, this is almost November. I've got to start doing that. And then I'm like, all right, getting out of bed. That's exciting. So that's my little thing in the morning. And when I'm doing the reading and I'm writing all this stuff, I'm writing in my journal.
So it's as little as a half an hour you take that for yourself, or it's nice that you can get up in the morning when, oh my God, 5 a.m. It's like, oh, I can go back to
I'm
sleep.
not really up. That's
Right.
the beauty of it.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
really up.
wonderful.
I'm just taking Charlie out to pee. That's all.
Yeah. It's like right now it's so dark. Like the sun doesn't even come up till 8 and it's dark. It's always this time of the year, this transition where
awful,
not being able to get up as early as I like to, or like being sleepy and all that, and the time changes and everything. And
your body likes light.
Yeah. And I've always been lucky as well to be able to let my body get up when it needs to. But sometimes I feel guilty during the week, especially this time of the year. I'm like, oh my God, I can't get up till 8 o'clock. It's so dark.
No, stop feeling guilty. It's such a wasted emotion.
No,
it's terrible.
I know.
I mean, usually it's a couple of hours. Usually I'm starting that at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30. I'm kind of like, okay, what do I want to do this week? Or what am I doing today? Okay, I've got to remember about the podcast today. I've got to remember that this is what's going on. And then like 7:30, I know the feeling of like, okay, Charlie, you want to go out for our walk? And then we go out for we do a walk. I'm about 1.5 miles from the beach. So we go to the beach a lot. And lots of dogs on the beach, which is really lovely all winter long, all winter long. So it's fun.
Sounds like a great morning. I have the morning too. I'm just up a little later, but yeah, it's just sitting, connecting, and then getting out into the nature and starting your day. Like, I think that's a wonderful practice that people can start right now. Like you said, that's your practice. Someone could just have like a half an hour. They have, get up half an hour earlier when they get up. It's like, you have your coffee, enjoy your coffee, and just, get something to ground yourself, and it'll help.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things I say is that you don't want somebody who does the same thing as you in the business. You want someone who has compatible skills. And people do that a lot. Like they get excited about a particular business and they look for somebody who's also excited about doing that business. No, you need somebody who is going to support what you want to create and has their own ability to lead in operations or lead in customer service or lead in marketing or lead whatever. You do you. And then you need to get people around you who do those other things that can support that vision.
Sounds like you have a great support system and team, which is, it's really hard for a lot of people to have that partnership. A lot of people go into partnership in business, real estate, whatever, and it just a lot of times doesn't work out. So it's so nice that you have that synergy. And you've been Soulful Revolution's been around 6 years. Is that right? Is that what I read? 6 years.
Yep.
Wow. Like you started it and you're just fully, you're fully engaged. You fully have this amazing business. Where do clients just pretty much come to you? Because a lot of times when you have your alignment, it's literally people just show up.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to do your own, you have a website and all that, but sometimes it just aligns with people and they find you out of their own.
Well, one of the things
match.
that was absolutely, I mean, one of the things that I started to understand way back when I was in media is that you need to have a place where people find you. And websites, we're doing a lot more with SEO. We're doing a lot more of that so people can find the website. But this business is a YouTube-centered business because YouTube is Google. It is a search engine. It is not the same as other social media. Facebook is terrible with search. And they're all great for their own reasons, for their own purposes. Instagram and Facebook are together, Meta, and TikTok. We have a lot of presence on TikTok, but YouTube is a video search engine. And so my philosophy, all of my career being in television, everything like that, is that if you want to connect with people, they must see you. They must sample you. They must experience you in order for them to trust you. And if you don't want to do, the world has changed so much. Like if you don't want to, so many people come to that business class and they're like, I hate sales. I don't want to be selling anything. I'm like, fine, you don't need to think of it that way. What happens in a transaction, meaning someone buys a reading from you or someone buys a class from you, is that you show them value. So people say, what else? They lean in because you're always providing value. And so every reading I do, I'm very aware of the structure of it. We do have an extended read that goes for every reading. So you don't have to. I want to make sure that in the reading, you're getting the story, you're getting everything you need to have a feeling of like, okay, I know what's going on, self-confidence with that. If I want to buy the extended, I can, but it's only a percentage of the people who watch the videos. So you could come to the channel and spend all day watching videos and not spend any money. Like, it's not really about that. It's sort of like, okay, if you want to go deeper with me, there's plenty of ways you can. But in this, in this arena, when I talk about people, people have Reiki practices, they don't just come because they have a spiritually based business. They could be an accountant who deals in spiritual practices, who deals, my lawyer, Andrew, who I really love. We got him and I said, this is up here in Maine, which the other lawyer was in Massachusetts and Connecticut. This lawyer, I said to Andrew, I'm like, I bet I'm the first like medium, tarot reader, astrologer you have. He's like, oh no. He's like, I have all of these people who do Reiki and who do, just every kind of thing you can imagine. He said, I do have channelers. I'm like, stop it. Because I didn't find you for that. And he's like, I know, but we are online and people do find us. And this area happens to be a big area of psychics and other kinds of people who do that kind of work. I'm like, that's incredible. And so his whole business is built around spiritual practices, which is why he's attracting them. So it's kind of magical the way that happens.
That is pretty amazing. because
Yeah.
it's not something that you think most lawyers or more accountants or business people are going
No.
to like, oh yeah, I've got a whole roster of them.
No, but the fact is, like, this is super mainstream.
Mhm.
This is not anymore something outside. I just got back from London. I spent like 10 days in London just enjoying myself. It was super fun. And I had a little spirit in my hotel room. And I was in there and I was like, like, okay. And so when I tell people about that, nobody looks at me. Well, they know what I do for a living, but they also don't look at me like, what are you talking about? Like my friends down the road, they're like, oh yeah, we lived in a haunted house over in Alfred for like 6 years. And I was like, oh my God, everybody is much more aware of the spiritual in our waking lives. And if you're plugged in and if you're not being completely taken over by something that is separating you from your soul connection, that's when your channeling is natural and when your creativity is natural and things like that. Corporate world for me is not that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Your face.
it's not that.
I get
It's
it.
not that.
Let's do another training video and like, oh, how to.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, I was so lucky to have worked in some really amazing places, and that agency that kind of fell off a cliff in 2008 was really lovely. Discovery Channel was my client. They gave me the media clients because I understood the media, and they were just wonderful. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
It was good information. I've learned a ton.
Mm-hmm. And it always seems like there's some kind of, you described it yourself as the tower moment. And I know what tower is because I've pulled that card many times.
Right.
And that's what's so cool and interesting about the tarot cards is there's so much that has to do, there's the majors, the minors, the court cards, and how each one tells us different parts of our life. The minors are about a certain phase of our life, and then the majors are as you get a little older and you're taking the whole journey around almost from birth to death. And can you, I know people like tarot or astrology, there's a lot of misconceptions around them. Is there anything that you would like to debunk? I mean, people are much more open to it now. It's not just like, oh, the psychic sign and like
Right
that
now.
you see. People are much more open to it now than they were
Yeah.
before. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
witchcraft or voodoo or
No,
something
no,
like that.
no. I mean, tarot is it's a visual cue, which is why I really like it, because I am very visual. I've always been, all of my education has been around literature and symbology, and so interested in symbols and what things mean in history. I'm a student of history as well. And so I love all of that. And so tarot cards are really symbols of experiences. And so when you lay out a tarot spread, I'm going to say people don't know that, well, they do know because I've said this a million times, but like, I'm very much about the spread as the structure or the frame of the reading. And each place in that tarot spread has meaning. Each card has meaning. The thing I want to debunk is that you're just throwing cards out there. Like, you're just like, I'm asking a question and just like cards. Like, that's really not reading tarot. There's a level of respect that comes from working with a deck, working with your energy, working with a spread. And the information is, garbage in, garbage out. If you have a good question, I think the question is the thing that drives the whole thing. If you're just like, what are you telling me, spirit? Like, you could do that every single day for yourself. Like, you could do that. That's fine, because I do that. I do that myself. But when you're reading for like Gemini and you plug into the energy and you're like, okay, I'm going to look at what's going on for them. This is the spread I'm using. And the story is trafficked along this structure. It's not just this like kind of random, oh my God, like there's a bunch of cards in front of me. But I pay attention to what I'm drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
So I could lay a spread down today and a year from now and be the same spread in the same structure. But because of what shows up for me or what I notice, that's a different reading. And so that's the wild card, is what is coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have, like, it's almost like if you have too many moving parts, you're not going to know what the guidance is. So the spread gives you anchor. It's like, this is me, this is how I'm showing up, this is the card of the situation, this is the card of opportunity, this is the card of how I got here, right? Like if you have a structure to it, and then 3, 4, 5 keywords for each of the tarot cards, that's the structure. And so what comes through of what I notice is the guidance. So whenever I haven't done an in-person reading in maybe 5 years, I'm going to say to you, but when I have someone sitting across a table from me and I lay something out, it's not a gotcha question. I say, what do you notice? What draws your attention? And they're always like looking for the right answer. I'm like, there is no right answer. I swear to God, there's no right answer. I want to know what caught your eye and why. Like, what is it about this? So I'll lay down cards in a spread. I know what their question is. And sometimes they're drawn to those big cards, the major arcana cards. They are peak moments in our lives. These are things they're archetypal experiences that we all share. Death, birth, love, okay? All of these kinds of big things. Minor arcana cards are process. How we get there, what do we need to do, what do we need to add, what do we need to subtract, and people, right? The court cards, people, a lot of times it's a reflection of us. And the debunking thing I want to say is, it's not just throwing the cards out there. It's like having a structure, having some discipline around getting a good question, using a spread, knowing some keywords, so that when that spread is laying there and you see, well, I got to tell you, I see 3 aces in this reading. And what that tells me is that we are on a new path here. We are on some kind, especially if they're all in the future, we are on some kind of, goosebumps on that. We are on some kind of new trajectory here. And that can color the entire reading. And, other people may notice, well, I see that big, ugly devil card and I just don't like that. And what happens if the death card shows up? Are you telling me that I'm going to die? And I'm like, no, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that your experiences may be holding you back and it may be time for a change. Mm-hmm. And then the context of everything. So what happens usually is they'll ask me a question, we do all that, the context of the reading. And as I'm talking, the real question comes out. Mm-hmm. People don't usually know how to ask a question, or they kitchen sink you. They want to know everything. I'm like, just focus on this one thing that's going on. And during the course of the reading, they'll be like, oh yeah. And oh yeah, like, okay, that devil card, that's Capricorn, that's my mother, or whatever. Like they'll start to get some intuitive hits as we're talking. Mm-hmm. And so much of the time, like a lot of the reading is contributed by the other person. Mm-hmm. I'm just, like a doctor or like whatever. I'm just holding space for the healing to happen. Mm-hmm. I'm making the circumstances available to you for the awareness to happen.
Now, do you pick up anything from, okay, you're picking up from the cards, but the person in front of you, do you pick anything up off of them? Do you see their guides?
Yeah. And I say, a lot, it's really hard for the people pleaser in me to not know that I know that you want this person to be in a relationship with you. I know that you want this job. I know, based on how people ask their questions. So it's hard for the people pleaser to not just say, oh yeah, it's all going to happen. Because I think then you're doing people a disservice. And I think what you want to say is you want to empower them. So even if they're like, I'm in this new relationship and I'm getting like 10 of Swords and 3 of Swords. And for those of you who listen, who pay attention to tarot, like some of the darkest stuff. And so my job here is to understand why that's there and empower people to use that energy, because 10 of Swords is really just like, it ain't going to get any worse than it is right now. That's about as bad as it gets, right? Like 10 of Swords and all of that. But what a lot of people do is they see that kind of stuff and they think, oh, it's over, it's awful, or whatever. You want to clarify cards. You don't want to just like let people kind of go to their fear place. You want to be like, how can I use this energy? That 3 of Swords is in the past. It's not coming. It's already happened. So that 3 of Swords is saying to me, like, how can you use the pain of the past to inform how you're in this relationship now? Okay. What are the red flags you're not ever letting yourself see, but now you might let yourself see because you had that pain in the past? You already know that exists. The 10 of Swords is betrayal. So are you paying attention to people in your midst? Are you really seeing how people are behaving with you, or are you only seeing the way you want to see? That's important. And so my job is to empower them to use the energy. Same with astrology, same with numerology, everything.
Do you have a particular spread? I saw you reaching for something. Do you have your deck of cards on your desk?
I do,
you have
but this is,
you have that. Okay.
This is like a little
quartz.
Rose quartz.
I
have
curious.
a lot of different things. This is an Amazonite heart.
Oh, okay.
That is about the integration of masculine and feminine, which I love. I do. I have like all of my cards are right around here. This is an oracle deck.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So I have them all right here. This is my little ta-da, Ace of Pentacles.
Which one is that one? Which one is that deck?
This is Barbara Moore's deck. I love this deck because the imagery is just really beautiful. And I've never been a fan of the decks that it's like the Thoth deck and those that just don't have any imagery to them. Like they would say, all right, so let's see, I'll get to a card. Okay. All right. So 7 of Wands, you see the wands, you see him trying to protect himself. You see him like putting up. In some of those other decks that I don't really like, they just have 7 wands. Like there's no
Rider-Waite. Oh yeah.
Right. Because if you're reading for other people, or if I'm using these on video, I want people to kind of get
an idea
to seeing them and get their own feeling from it, because my job is also to help them become more assured in their own intuition. Because it doesn't really matter what I say. Like what's important is that you go, oh wow, that was for me. That was a message for me. Or oh boy, that's my story. You know, it's interesting when you find I watch a lot of other readers on YouTube. I think it's fascinating to see how other people read. And I was like, oh wow, that's my story. I was listening to it. And you know, people, when it's a reading that can be kind of like challenging, people don't want to see it because they don't want anything bad to happen or anything like that. But I'm going to challenge people to say, you know what, forewarned is forearmed. Like you're more powerful than you think. So why not open yourself up to the possibility that, hey, that best friend might not be all that reliable, or maybe talking behind your back. Like just waking up to those ideas. And if you're awake to it and it's like, no, that didn't happen, that's not for me. Okay, good. Right. Good.
Well, that's a really good explanation about tarot, and people, be able to use their own intuition. It's just interesting because what do you tell somebody that might have had a bunch of readings before over the years, and none of it came to, oh, you're going to meet this person, he's this and this and that, the other thing, and it just never happens. What about all these, or the job or something that they wanted, and what happens? I mean, I know there's some, free choice, or there's like whatever that law is.
Yeah. A lot of times, we're reading, just like with astrology, your birth chart is a snapshot of the moment you were born. Tarot is a snapshot of a moment too. And so these are the energies available to you. people are responsible for themselves, right? People are responsible for themselves, are responsible for making choices and going in this direction or going in that direction. If you watch a reading and you're like, wow, that's my story, I'm open to it. I'm open to another person showing up right now. I can't tell you how many people recently, I think since, in the last couple of years, who've been very much like, I don't want to hear anything about love anymore because I've had so many toxic relationships. I'm like, okay, well then here's the thing. If you don't trust other people, what you're really saying is you're not trusting yourself. You're not trusting yourself to see the red flags and to actually do something about it. And if you have watched a bunch of readings and you're like, nothing's happening, nothing's coming true, whatever, it's kind of like, okay, how am I interacting with that energy? Do I feel like that was really my reading? Or was it something that was like, all right, well, I'm going to kind of jam myself into that reading. I hope that's my reading, right? Like, are you really feeling a connection to the reading, or are you kind of wishing that it is? Wishing is manifesting. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, let's see how we can surf. I want people to surf the energy of being like, wow, all of this stuff is available to me. I guarantee you that your life partner is walking around on this planet if you're over the age of 5. So they're here, right? There's a person for you. They're walking around. And are you in that place of being open to it or not? And the same goes for readings. Are you open to it or not? And that's what I was talking about in the beginning about manifesting, about something amazing is going to happen today. That's general enough. So you have to get a track record of seeing how positive, how amazingly manifesting, how amazing your manifesting capability is. So you're like, yeah, something really amazing happened. I got to meet Nancy today. That was super fun. And, all this kind of stuff. And then like, okay. So you have some credibility with yourself, because then when things come through, you're not going to learn to ride a bicycle in a hurricane. When bad things are going on, as they inevitably do, life is a bunch of cycles. You're not going to learn to listen to your intuition in a hurricane like that. You've got to do it when the skies are clear. You've got to do it when things are boring, when things are peaceful, when nothing matters to you. It doesn't matter to you whether you have pot roast or you have hot dogs for dinner. It doesn't really matter to you. Like, use your intuition to pick and choose and do stuff that doesn't really matter. So you can start being like, oh, yeah, that was a good choice. And you start to trust yourself. And then when you get up to that level of love, picking partners or choosing to say yes to this or no to that, you're going to have some track record of how it feels. And you're going to be able to, when things really do matter, when things are on the line, choosing that job or not choosing that job, buying that house or not buying that house, moving to California, living in London, whatever, you're going to have more confidence in yourself. And that is going to make a lot of difference.
So it's getting into that place where, something that you're not so attached to, that you can have that information come through about something that's not super important to you. And then build that trust, and then opening to that space of receptivity where it's like something wonderful is going to happen today. And it's an expectation. You're changing your whole vibration, your frequency, because that's what everything is anyway. So
100%.
what an exciting and beautiful thing for everyone to really, it's such a great, it's inherent in all of us. For all of us, we have the ability to access it. And how much easier will life be when we're able to, trust and surrender and, really listen. So
absolutely. And just start to trust yourself in little small things. Little small things. Don't wait until like there's a big problem for you to go, okay, I'm meditating. I know, it's not going to work. I promise you, it's not going to work. What will work is just like, all right, what do I feel like today? Okay, I feel like this today. I feel like a maroon sweater today. I feel like, right? Like I'm feeling this today. And just start to flow with that. And I think the biggest issue that people have, I kind of have this little bubble of my house. I live here by myself with Charlie. You have people in your life all the time. If you live with kids and spouses and everything like that, in-laws and stuff like that, you're going to need to get better at protecting your own little bubble of yourself. You're just going to need to, like, you have to learn to say no. You have to learn when to just keep to yourself. You have to learn to not let other people's nonsense. I mean, I have a Twitter feed from when I was in television, and all my reporter friends, my lawyer friends and people like that. It's just like, oh, like I can't even, it's really hard to, you can get really sucked into media. You get really sucked into all these things. And it's like, you get to control what's going on around you because of how you respond to things. And if you choose to let things upend your peace, we had a terrible thing happen in Maine last week with a shooting that happened here. It was very big news. And my Colleen and I both, like, it was a couple of days worth of that. And Saturday, we both were like, like, I just have to, like, regain my feeling of things are going to be okay. Things are going to be fine. Things are going to be good again. Things are going to be lovely again. Things are going to be, and just being in a community that was like in that place was challenging. So you have to learn to, like, give yourself some protection, feel your feelings. There's no such thing as everybody's happy all the time.
Spiritual bypassing.
Right. Because if you don't, they're going to come up like a beach ball from underwater at the worst possible time.
And that's such great advice, because there's especially with social media, there's so much coming at us all the time, and we seen what happened over the last couple of years, and it just doesn't seem to be getting better. And there's periods of time, like I talk about the awakening. We'll start wrapping this up because I know we have to go, but the whole thing has awakened a lot of people's eyes to what's going on, and it's so important. Like, I used to rabbit hole. I was like, for 2 years, the whole Dark Night of Soul awakening thing, which isn't pretty. It's like, what the hell's going on here? But I used to, like, get taken down. Now, I mean, what happened just in Israel? Horrific. So I listen to, podcasts, listen to it, and then I research it, and I see what's going on. I'm like, what the, but there's a certain point. Okay. I've learned enough. I can't even look at that. I can't even, there's a point where you have to keep yourself away from it. You know enough, but you don't have to feed into that. So that's a place after rabbit holing, if you have to go there, that you have to bring yourself out of, or make yourself crazy. It's your own energy.
Yes, because, there is a tipping point on the planet, and the positive, the joyful, the light we need each other to sort of hold hands and be a bright spot, even in the midst of, I mean, that's why they do candlelight vigils. That's why people gather together for candlelight vigils, is to, like, let other people know that the hearts are alive, the hearts are there. And that's a ritual that's been going on forever. And so there's no such thing as, like, completely burying yourself. I don't think that works either. I think you have to know what's going on. I think you have to also take care to protect yourself and protect that light, because it's not just me. It's like, I don't have to do everything. You don't have to do everything. But if there's enough of us doing what we can do, that light does exponentially expand. And there is a tipping point on this planet where the light will overtake all of this. And, hopefully in our lifetimes that will happen. I mean, we are moving into the age of Aquarius. Pluto is going into Aquarius at the end of January. So hold tight. It's still in Capricorn, and Capricorn is structures and authority and governments and everything. And it's like the old guard, and Pluto is like, smash. I don't want any of that. So Pluto going into Aquarius is much more about the collective and what we all need, and what's good for all is good for one. And that's where we're headed. So, 3 months. God. Can you just, I'm not saying that everything in the world is going to completely change in 3 months, but I will say that the last 3 months here, there might be a little kicking and screaming of Capricorn not wanting to go away.
Well, that's very hopeful then, because we need Pluto to shake things up for the greater humanity. So we've seen enough craziness in the last couple of years, or, you know, that we last couple of years, because it's been so in our faces more.
So
I mean, there's always stuff
concentrated.
going on for a long, long time.
That's true. That's true.
So,
Yeah.
well, this has been an awesome podcast. There's so many different avenues. We've only touched like barely even scratched the surface about
I know, but we'll have to talk again.
everything.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll have to, like, different you know, numerology, astrology, energy work. There's
I
twin
know. We could
flame
talk about a lot of
phenomenon. Yeah, there
topics,
is.
right?
So, two more questions before we go. So, where can people find and work with you? What project do you have right now that's really lighting you up?
So Soulful Revolution TV .com is our website, and there's a lot of classes on there. I think the classes that I'm giving right now are really lighting me up. The ones that are talking about your karmic path and what you're here to do. I talk a lot about something called the North Node in people's astrology chart, and that is something that shows you your purpose. What are you here to do? And most people either really gravitate toward it or they're terrified of it. And at some point in your life, a lot of the spiritual awakenings will draw you toward that North Node, your mission and purpose, and stay away from your South Node, which is your comfort zone. So I talk a lot about that. I love talking about that. We could talk about that for a whole hour, and I'd be happy to do that. People can find us. It's YouTube centric. So please come on to YouTube. Soulful Revolution TV. I post every single day. I post monthly readings, mid-monthly readings, weekly readings, and I post a morning message that is meant for the collective spiritual community that's really reading the energy of that collective. So that's where you can find me, and I invite you.
And is that part of I saw how you can sign up for your newsletter. So if someone signs up for your newsletter, they'll be I'm going to sign up. I'm going to go to your website.
I have to write the November one.
Yeah. I saw that October. I mean, we just had a freaking full moon and eclipse, and where I can't sleep for like 4 days. Like, what's going on? Let me see what the moon's doing. Sure as shit.
It is going to stick around. That energy is going to stick around for a couple weeks until we get to the new moon in Scorpio in the middle of the month of November. But the full moon that we had over the weekend, God bless Matthew Perry, it just made me so sad that he passed away on that full moon. But that full moon in Taurus was about anything that was like undercutting our sense of value or believing in ourselves. Anything that's holding us back from really believing in ourselves needed to be purged. And there's a lot of relationships, because Taurus is about intimate partnerships. It's the Empress energy, it's Venus. And so there can be a lot of relationships that, if they're not supportive of that divine feminine, divine masculine piece, then those relationships can be purged as well. So there's a lot going on right now. And, you know, just know that energy is going to stick around for a little while. Eclipse is activation energy. It is.
Oh, I'm feeling like, I'm taking a magnesium calm. I'm just like, why is my energy like this? What's going on? So I'm crawling out of the skin kind of thing. So yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, one more question before we go. I asked all my guests this.
Okay.
What does it mean for you to live with an awakened heart?
Oh,
you're a cute dog, by the way.
I know, this is Charlie. He's
Charlie.
He's a fixture on the channel. Part of it is just, for me, to live with an awakened heart is an awareness of empowerment and love for other people, an awareness that we are all really doing the best we can. And, you know, just this sense of like, I feel open to the energies when I'm dealing with an awakened heart or living with an awakened heart. I feel my intuition is at an all-time high. I feel like I am clear going up the chakras and down the chakras. I feel that so strongly. And really, it's about compassion, because I think that's the highest level of love that we can have for ourselves and for other people. So if you're dealing with a lot of compassion and gratitude, you are doing it right, in my opinion. Yeah.
Compassion and gratitude. Well, thank you, Mary Jo. It's been such a pleasure having you on today in the Awakened Heart podcast.
Thank you, Nancy. It's great to see you. And I don't know, this was wonderful. Super fun. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have you on again because there's so many things to talk about.
I know. Call anytime. Anytime.
Okay, great.